How you doing today? My name's Doug. This is going to be my first video. I really have never done this before, but I'm going to try to develop a series of YouTube videos about commentary or things that I know. Now, what's my first commentary of what I see tonight from the news? Well, it's the death of Betty Broderick. Who's Betty Broderick? She was that socialite in San Diego that went in the middle of the night and killed her ex-husband and second wife. She got the life sentence, and she recently passed away, what she deserved. No one has a right to go in, no matter how much grievance she has against her husband and ex-wife. She had no right to do that, and she got what she deserved. She lived the final 35 years of her life in jail. That's what she deserved. But let me also point this out about the case. Betty had some legitimate concerns about that divorce, and some of her anger, but this does not justify murder, was legitimate. The case actually was not her divorce case, which became infamous in San Diego, was full of conflict of interests. From what I have been reading, Dan Broderick was a very powerful San Diego attorney whose name later became on the board of the San Diego Law Association, and he actually was the former president of the San Diego Bar. Obviously, his connections to the powerful law firms in San Diego put Betty Broderick, against a wall. And there were legitimate concerns about that, and it lasted for years. He knew how to make the system work for him. It's basically what goes on all the time around the country. People do that happens, and that divorce should never happen in San Diego County. It was a big conflict of interest, and the divorce attorney was apparently, from what I've read, was at Linda and Dan's wedding. Again, this does not justify her going into killing Linda and Dan, but it made me think about several points about this case. Any spouse that go into a marriage should keep at least 1 foot, usually it's female, but both males should maintain a life of their own. Do not develop this June Cleaver or father knows best behavior towards other people. You need to maintain your own self, so that if something goes wrong in your life, you're able to control your emotions and then move on with your life. I've had to do that several times in my life. 2, this goes to another point that I found out. She passed away because she made a fall in the prison system, and she was moved to a hospital, and she apparently had septic. This goes to a point, and I guess, about elderly prisoners in jail, which I have been reading about, particularly dementia patients, that is putting more and more stress on the state budget. Some people say, well, they deserve it and they get it. They got it. No one has a right to murder, and I agree with that, and I agree with a lot of the victims' rights. But we are not a caveman country. You have to maintain a basic standard of care for other prisoners. Some say, well, this is because we got rid of the death penalty. There might be some truth to that, but in the end, the problems with elderly prisoners is only going to get worse because the baby boomer are now reaching the end of the tier, and it was during the baby boomer we had an explosion in crime. So we are facing that. So Betty Broderick simplifies what's going on in our prison system today about lifetime prisoners. Alas, I know some of the Dan and Linda supporters are going to be angry, but the reality was they know very well what happened in that divorce and knew that he pushed her and she pushed him, and it was a ticking time bomb. Now, my question regarding is, why wasn't she in a mental hospital before this whole situation? Apparently there were threats. This could have been prevented, this whole nightmare, not just because of the divorce, but her harming other people. Where was people putting her behind. He was obviously a very powerful man. He could have easily had her thrown in a psycho ward, and that would have protected him. But this question, if anything comes out of this case with Betty and Dan Broderick, is that it may have saved another person from acting out in this manner. And that's what I hope. It stopped somebody else from doing this, because in the end, this case, there was only losers in the case. The family lost, the kids lost. It was just a terrible situation, and nothing, and again I repeat, justified her going into that home in the middle of the night, killing Linda and Dan, no matter how much she felt the system was stacked against her. You don't do that. That she got what she deserved. But in the end, if you feel that, for people out there who feel injustice towards them, get some help. Go find somebody. If Betty had just taken the divorce and fled San Diego, I think it would have been a lot better. But we can only learn from the tragedy. This is a tragedy situation. Good night.